And then it was Monday, our final stretch of the trip. Well, our day began with one of our teammates leading a Devo, and then Em led some worship. At this point, I was very sad that the trip was almost up. Like, the first week was very hard and, dealing with new time zones and a new culture and everything. And so I feel like I was more like, not really like being present. I was like kind of just going with the motions. And so once week 2 hit, I was like, okay, like, this is our last week. I want to be as present as I can. I want to make more friends. I want to be so present. This morning Devo was just like extra touching to me, especially with worship. Em sang Oceans, and the quote, where take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith would be made stronger. That was like so eye-opening, because faith is like everything, and especially in a new place, a new country, and God took us deeper than our feet could ever wander. Like, who knew we would end up in Tajikistan? And so it was just an encouragement that, okay, God's gonna be with me. Evangelizing is scary and hard, but he was with me that first moment that I talked to a lady in a wedding shop. And so what more can he do? It was very encouraging. And I felt like God was telling me this morning that he's strong, and to find shelter in him, because he'll lead us. Then we headed to the office, the gathering with all of the local workers and the national partners, and it was kind of like a repeat of what we did the previous week, but this time I was able to actually like take in worship. I think the first week I was shocked by the language and just their ways of worship. I wasn't really like present and enjoying it. So this week I was like, I know what to expect. I just want to be engaged and present, and I was just like tearing up at how beautiful it was hearing them just sing songs in another language, and songs we didn't even know, and they were so full of emotion and faith. It was just so moving. I was just sitting there with my eyes closed, just tearing up. Then we had another Tajik language lesson because we loved the first one. We wanted to learn more. This one we learned about fruits and vegetables and shopping lingo, and we played some silly games to like memorize it. My favorite word was lablabu, which means beat, and it was very funny because a lot of our teammates couldn't say that. They kept like messing it up.
Blah, blah, boo. Blah, blah, boo. Blah, blah, boo.
No.
I swear I'm not.
Then we went back to one of our favorite cafes, and this is when the mimosas that I already knew I loved became even more of a love in my life because of the strawberry flavor that you could choose. They're all virgin mojitos. They have them at every cafe. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I have found my new drink for the rest of the trip. So I ordered a strawberry mojito, and then from then on, I had a strawberry mojito like every day of the trip. Then one of our teammates met with one of the workers to hear about the business side of missions and how it works, how it functions. And then we got to witness one of our teammates make a friend with the waiter and make a connection. It was not only cool just like hearing about, what other people were doing when they went out, but it was cool like being there, witnessing it and watching it and seeing God work right in front of our eyes. Then we had our last Kurta fitting. We had to make sure that it was all fit, that all the sizes and measurements were right. And then later that evening, Emily, Josh, and I, we went to practice our worship set because we were leading worship the next day. Day 9, Tuesday, July 4th, we started off with another Devo and some worship together. This time in worship, I was reminded of surrender. Like I said earlier, we thought we were coming to do healthcare and business and worship, and a lot of us were a little bit discouraged in finding out like all those things we were prepping for weren't the actual ministry that we would be helping out with. And so at this point in the trip, we were like for it, we were motivated, we were excited, but I was just reminded about surrender and surrendering to being scared and to not knowing the right words to say, surrendering to facing new fears and to go out and meet new people. Also surrendering like my own expectations and my own control that creeps up sometimes when I want to navigate a situation. And so it was a very inspiring thing of like letting go, just fully being present and letting God do the rest. I was also reminded of Psalm 23, that he's making good plans even when our plans fail. That first week we were like, what are we doing here? Like, we thought we were coming to do this and it's changed and we're a little bit discouraged. And so week 2 was just, no, we're here, we're doing this, we're surrendering. He's making good plans. Like, there's a reason why we're here. So it was just an encouraging week. Then we went to this other beautiful cafe. Food in third world countries and other places, you have to be very careful about vegetables and fruits, and so a lot of these cafes were recommended by our field workers because they're safe, they wash it well. Most of our eating outs were at these cafes. This is where I fell in love with this particular strawberry mimosa that I had like 4 more times after it. Then girls and I, we went to one of the local malls and we made another friend. We made a connection. It was awesome. I wish that we had made more connections the first week because the end of the trip was coming up and I wanted more time to like hang out with these people and to get to know them more. And it was just like an instant connection right when we met this girl. After that, we had to go to our worship set that we were leading. Right before our set, the power went out, go figure. So all the mics, the instruments, Em was supposed to lead on piano and that didn't end up working, so our field worker came through with bringing his guitar, and so instead of Em on piano, Em and I were just on vocals, and instead of Josh on bass, he was on the cajon. So it turned into a beautiful acoustic worship set.
Your spirit strong in me, my flesh may fail, but my God, you never will.
We were excited that we got to actually embrace the worship aspect of coming on this trip and leading the other field workers in worship. Then we had a team dinner at this local pizza place that was run by missionaries, and it was delicious. It was a fun night. Day 10, Wednesday, June 5th. We went to a worship workshop with one of the leaders of worship there, and it was really cool. She like told us how she writes and even played some songs that were personal to her for us, and played some songs for her. It was just a really cool experience. Then we met up with our friend that we met at the mall the previous day. We all got strawberry mimosas, and this time we were like extra confused because when they brought it to us, it was like extravagant. It had a fire candle that he lit and flames were going out. It had marshmallows in it. It was just crazy, and we like had to remind him, we're like, no alcohol, right? And he's like, no. So it was just perfect. It was a special occasion with our new friends. We had some really good conversations, just planting seeds and just opening up our hearts and hearing her heart. I think this was definitely a highlight for me of just embracing the awkward and the hard of bringing up the Lord in a conversation and seeing where it goes. And so I think we definitely had a good impact. We still keep in touch, and even at the end of the trip, she gave us a bracelet and a necklace, and it was just really sweet. I wish we met her sooner because I definitely wanted to connect a bit more, and I was really sad. I was so sad that we had to leave and not know that we'd ever see her again. Day 11, Thursday, June 6th. So I met up with one of the ladies that was in charge with communications within their organization. And it was really cool. We met up in this beautiful cafe, a beautiful breakfast, and a beautiful tea. It was like a fruit tea. It was delicious. And we talked about all things communications. And she even asked me if I could design a logo for the next place that she's going. She's moving up north, somewhere in Tajikistan in a few months. And so she asked me to help her design a logo and find colors and all these things. And so it was really cool to be able to use, my degree and be able to provide some good insight. It felt like a social media consultation because she was also asking me about like how to do certain posts and what I think some would work. And so it was really fun. After that, we went to a Tajikan water park. It was so much fun. I have a big old bruise. I think it's healed now, but it was a big old bruise here because Em and I flew out of a water slide on one of those like ones that go up and you come down. We like flew and tumbled out, and it was crazy and scary in the moment, but so much fun looking back. We spent the rest of our day just relaxing at this water park, just having a fun day. After that, we had our team debrief in which we like went through questions of like how the trip was for us and where we felt God moving and things we learned about ourselves. And so it was this long debrief, and so because of that we ordered in our favorite cafe, Tartine. So mimosa number 7 probably at this point. It was really nice to just like stay in, debrief with the team, hear about their experiences and have them hear about mine. It was just a really cool way to end the trip. And then that leads us to our final day, June 7th. So we finally got our kurtas. They finally came in, and so on the last day we got to wear them. So we wore them the whole day. And we went to another session in one of the worship sets. To a painting session with the other ladies. We had an instructor and she like paints a little bit and then we like do the same, and we painted tulips on a field, and it was just perfect because we were in Tajikistan where flowers are everywhere. After that, we went to a session on how they do discipleship there. Discipleship with new believers, discipleship with people who have come out of a different faith than we have. The question that I walked away with, that they kind of left us with, was how are we doing at making disciples? Are we making disciples, or are people just showing up on Sundays and giving money? And that just kind of changed my whole outlook to church, because they didn't have church buildings here. They didn't have like a pastor come up or a worship team come up. There was no production to it. It was like stripped down, like meeting with one another to have a worship set, meeting with one another to pray for this certain thing, meeting with one another to talk about our faith journeys. It was very intentional. Then we went souvenir shopping, and so we got to, find those little souvenirs we want to take back to our family. And we had our final dinner at our field workers' house, in which we debriefed and prayed for them and for their continuous ministry in Tajikistan, and they prayed over us and our travels. It was bittersweet. I was very sad leaving because I feel like, you walk into trips and you're like, wow, 2 weeks is a long time, and it's really not. It really does fly by, and as soon as you like make connections with people, it's like it's time to go. It was really hard for me to process leaving and feeling like, okay, like we came and we planted seeds, and that was our ministry here. We weren't building houses, we weren't teaching VBS to kids, we were just being disciples, being little beams of light. It was definitely a different takeaway than other trips. It's hard to see the fruit of what that trip was. So then we went home, we packed up, and then we headed out at 1:30 in the morning to catch our 5 a.m. flight. These were my takeaways from Tajikistan. 1, God will equip us to do hard and scary things. Like my time in the wedding shop, it was our first stop, and we had such an intentional encounter. And God was present. He was there. He knew that this was new to us. He knew that this was a bit scary. And he allowed an encounter, like the first person we came up to. The second thing that I took away was God used us to have an impact by being beams of light and carrying hope for those who could speak English, and to have conversations with them and bring truth. Third takeaway I got was just the impact on my life that this trip had. It showed me how to really pray and intercede and have full faith of what the Lord can do. Just seeing their faith compared to mine, it made me open my eyes to see like, wow, these people are praying and they're believing and they're trusting. And here I am with my little prayers and not being super intentional with them. It was just very eye-opening. Since I've been back, I've done the read it, write it, say it, pray it for a verse, praying over a verse and praying over specific people and specific places and things, because our prayers shouldn't just be about us and about God, I need this, God, I need this. And I feel like a lot of my prayers had been that up to this point of my life. And being in Tajikistan and having intentional time to pray over this village and Afghanistan even, and all of these different places, I came back and I was like, I don't want to be selfish about my prayers. I want to be selfless and pray intentionally over people and family members and things, and actually believe that God hears my prayers and he will intercede. I truly feel like God is calling me towards missions. Every time I'm doing an outreach or something, I'm in deep prayer of, God, like, you keep leading me here. Is this where you want me? Is this where you're pushing me towards? And he keeps opening doors and he keeps opening opportunities, and my heart keeps shifting to desire those things too. And so I am just excited to see where God's gonna keep leading me. But I can't do it without support from family and friends like you guys. It's been a true blessing to be able to come to Tajikistan and just be beams of light, and I couldn't have done that without the support. I truly love going out into the nations and planting seeds. My next trip is in a few weeks. I'm going to Germany, not for 2 weeks, but for 2 months this time, and this trip is something that God put on my heart at the beginning of this year. Tajikistan was the only trip I had planned this year, and by the end of this year, I will have gone on 3 mission trips, and not by my own will or my own want, but God's just been pushing me there. And so Germany is coming up, and this time it's focusing on creative evangelism. And so I think that doing evangelism in Tajikistan was just a good prep. God was prepping me for what I would be doing for 2 months in Germany. And this time, language barriers aren't that much of an issue because a lot of people speak English in Europe. I'm just super excited to see where God's gonna lead me and for the time in Germany. For this Germany trip, I need to raise $2,700. Yeah, it requires lots of support and lots of fundraising, and so that's kind of gonna be my focus for the next few weeks until I head out on July 15th. If you feel led after seeing this video, after seeing your impact or others' impact of donating to my trip and seeing what the Lord did through me and through my team, if you feel led to donate and to continue supporting missions, I'm gonna place a picture of my Venmo. I am starting to fundraise. I need to raise money soon, but I would also love prayer. If finances are a big struggle for your family, prayer is just as important. I just saw how much interceding and praying does. And so prayer that finances will come through, prayer that God will use me in Germany. I've never been there before. I don't speak the language. Prayer that he will just be so present. Prayer that I will encounter a community that is just as passionate and encouraged to do missions like I am. And just prayer for safety overall, hedge of protection. Thank you so much for listening. If you watched the whole thing or if you jumped through, thanks for listening. I've been sharing these stories. This is maybe my 10th time going in depth with the stories. And there's always more. There's little stories and things I left out just for sake of time. But if you want to hear more about my trip, I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to call if you want to hear about missions. If you're interested in missions, I'd love to talk to you about it and just share my experience with it. Thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to tell you about my time in Germany next.